Story 1. The Final Verdict Tragedy at the Abandoned Asylum. The wind howled through the broken windows of the abandoned asylum, carrying with it a chilling sense of foreboding. As I stepped through the overgrown courtyard, the moon cast eerie shadows that seemed to dance around me, whispering tales of the horrors that once plagued this place. The asylum had been closed for decades, its halls now silent and empty, a stark contrast to the screams and cries that had once echoed through its corridors. Rumors of mistreatment and unspeakable experiments had shrouded the asylum in a veil of darkness, earning it a reputation as a place of nightmares. I had always been drawn to the macabre, to the stories that sent shivers down the spine and made the heart race with fear. And so, on this fateful New Year's Eve, I found myself standing at the gates of the abandoned asylum, my curiosity outweighing my better judgment. As I made my way inside, the air grew colder, the darkness thicker. The only sound was the echo of my footsteps on the decaying floorboards, a hollow reminder of the lives that had once inhabited this place. I had heard whispers of a final verdict, a tragic ending that had befallen the asylum on a New Year's Eve long ago. The details were vague, obscured by time and fear, but something in me yearned to uncover the truth, to shine a light on the darkness that had consumed this place. As I ventured deeper into the asylum, I felt a growing sense of unease, as though unseen eyes were watching my every move. Shadows flickered at the edge of my vision, shapes that seemed to twist and contort in the dim light. And then, as I reached the heart of the asylum, I saw it. A room bathed in a sickly green glow, the walls lined with rows of empty beds, each one a silent testament to the suffering that had taken place here. In the center of the room stood a figure, its back turned to me, its presence radiating a malevolent energy that made my blood run cold. I called out, my voice trembling, but the figure did not respond. And then, with a sudden jolt, it turned towards me. Its face was twisted and contorted, a mask of agony and despair that sent a wave of terror crashing over me. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest, as the figure began to move towards me, its movements jerky and unnatural. I turned to flee, to escape the nightmare that had become all too real, but it was too late. The figure was upon me, its icy grip closing around my throat, choking the life from me. As darkness closed in around me, I heard a voice, cold and cruel, whispering in my ear. "The final verdict has been passed," it said, a cruel laughter echoing through the empty halls. And so, on that fateful New Year's Eve, I became another tragic ending in the long and bloody history of the abandoned asylum. My fate sealed, my story lost to the shadows, a warning to all who dared to seek the truth in the darkness. Anonymous Spectator Story. Story 2. Mystery Unveiled Drug Den of Despair. As the clock struck midnight on New Year's Eve, I found myself drawn to a dilapidated building at the edge of town. Rumors had been circulating about a drug den hidden within its walls, a place where unspeakable horrors took place under the cover of darkness. Despite the warnings and the chill that ran down my spine, I couldn't resist the pull of the unknown. The building loomed before me, its windows boarded up and the door hanging off its hinges. With each step I took towards it, a sense of dread washed over me, but I pushed forward, determined to uncover the truth that lay within. As I entered the building, a wave of stale air and decay assaulted my senses. The walls were covered in graffiti, the floor littered with needles and other paraphernalia. I could hear whispers echoing through the corridors, sending shivers down my spine. I followed the sound to a room at the end of the hallway, where a flickering light illuminated a scene straight out of a nightmare. A group of shadowy figures huddled around a table, their faces twisted in ecstasy and despair as they injected themselves with unknown substances. I watched in horror as one by one, they succumbed to the drugs coursing through their veins, their bodies contorting in agony. It was a macabre dance of death, a symphony of suffering that chilled me to the core. But the true horror was yet to come. As the last figure fell to the ground, a door creaked open at the far end of the room. A figure emerged from the darkness, its features obscured by shadows. It moved towards me with purpose, a sense of malevolence radiating from its very being. I tried to flee, but my feet were rooted to the spot. The figure drew closer, its presence overwhelming me. And then, with a voice like ice, it spoke. "You should not have come here, for this is where hope goes to die," it whispered, its words sending a chill down my spine. And in that moment, I understood the true nature of the drug den of despair. It was not just a place of addiction and suffering, but a gateway to something far more sinister. A place where the line between reality and nightmare blurred, and where those who dared to enter were doomed to a fate worse than death. As the figure reached out towards me, a sense of dread washed over me. I closed my eyes, waiting for the final blow. But instead of pain, all I felt was a cold wind rushing past me, carrying with it the whispers of the lost souls trapped within the walls. And as I stumbled out of the building, shaken to my core, I knew that the mystery of the drug den of despair had been unveiled. But the true horror was yet to come, for in the darkness something stirred, and it hungered for vengeance. Anonymous Spectator Story. Story 3. Obscure Cult Manipulation at Abandoned Church on New Year's Day. As I stepped into the abandoned church on New Year's Day, a sense of foreboding washed over me. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and the sound of my footsteps echoed ominously through the empty halls. I had heard rumors of a cult that used this desecrated place for their twisted rituals, and against my better judgment, I had come to investigate. The walls were adorned with strange symbols, and flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows that seemed to dance and twist in the darkness. I could feel the weight of the building pressing down on me, suffocating me with its oppressive atmosphere. But I pressed on, driven by a morbid curiosity that I couldn't shake. As I ventured deeper into the church, I heard the faint sound of chanting coming from somewhere ahead. My heart pounded in my chest as I crept closer, the words becoming clearer with each step. The cultists were invoking dark powers, their voices rising in a fevered crescendo that sent shivers down my spine. Peering around a corner, I saw them gathered in a circle, their faces twisted in ecstasy as they performed their macabre ceremony. In the center of the room, a figure lay motionless on an altar, surrounded by offerings of blood and bone. I felt bile rise in my throat as I realized the true horror of what was unfolding before me. Suddenly, a hand clamped down on my shoulder, and I whirled around to face a hooded figure looming over me. Their eyes gleamed with a fanatical fervor, and I knew in that moment that I was trapped, caught in the web of their insidious plot. "Welcome, brother," the cultist hissed, their voice a chilling whisper that seemed to crawl beneath my skin. "You have been chosen to witness the birth of a new era, to embrace the darkness that lies within us all." I tried to break free, to flee from this nightmare that threatened to consume me whole, but it was too late. The cultists closed in around me, their hands reaching out to drag me towards the altar where unspeakable horrors awaited. And as the clock struck midnight, signaling the dawn of a new year, I knew with a sickening certainty that I would never escape the clutches of this obscure cult, condemned to a fate worse than death in the bowels of the abandoned church. Anonymous Spectator Story.